Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture Football.
And I'm Andrew Pollard from WhatCulture Football.
And we are here with all of your latest football news, lots to cover, including that heartbreaking defeat for Atalanta in the Champions League. But before that, let's talk a little bit about Barcelona. Some fascinating news coming out of France today, coming from Le 10 Sport, but I guess it'd be Le 10 Sport if we're doing it from France. But according to their sources, Arsene Wenger has been offered the chance to potentially manage Barcelona next season. Now, let's be honest, this isn't the most reliable of sources, Andrew Pollard, but we've seen names like Mauricio Pochettino, Marcelo Gallardo, Garcia Pimienta, easy for me to say, who's of course is Barcelona B manager, and Gallardo is River Plate manager. Lots of names, of course, being linked with a job that isn't actually up for grabs right now, but the general consensus will be that Barcelona has a potentially new manager next season. Apparently, the people in charge at Barcelona have tried many different avenues, looked into many different people to manage Barcelona, but they inquired to the former Arsenal manager, Arsene Wenger, who declined a proposal to manage the Barcelona team just outright, not even being considered for it. What do you make of this news?
A little bit nuts, I'll be honest. I mean, like you said, you ran through some of the names there that are linked to him. The Gallardo one's fascinating, because I just remember him as this kind of luxury flair player that was yet another player who was tipped as the next Maradona, like Ariel Ortega, the poor fella. And Bielsa is another one that's been linked to the job as well. It's Barcelona's nuts. It's a nuts football club right now. Where which other club in the world really, probably maybe Real Madrid, would you have a situation where there's a manager in place who's just finished the league season, has a Champions League quarter-final coming up against Bayern Munich, and already it's like, yeah, but who's going to be in charge next season? And this guy's just like, well, I'm still here, guys. I'm still in the dugout. I guess if this is true and Wenger did say no, then I guess that pretty much rules out him returning to club management at all, really. Because if you turn down Barcelona, then I mean, are you going to go and take the job at QPR or something? No, probably not. So it's a crazy story if it is a true story, but it's. Yeah, I mean, it puts in your mind one of those like what ifs. I mean, what if Arsene Wenger took the Barcelona job? What would all of a sudden Barcelona get their version of Arsenal Fan TV of really angry people shouting about what he's doing to Leo Messi? It's a great one to think about, but yeah, it looks like if the story is true, then Wenger's turned it down outright. So more power to him.
Yeah, I do enjoy watching the brief things that I've seen of Arsene Wenger as a sort of analyst. I think he brings a lot to the game, of course. I think the game may have slightly passed him by, not to pile on him too much. He was a sensational manager who did incredible things, of course, at Arsenal. As you mentioned, Setien, to use an old football cliche, appears to have lost the dressing room at Barcelona. Looking a lot more into Marcelo Gallardo, River Plate manager, the most successful River Plate manager ever, I believe, and someone who has been tipped for the Barcelona job in the past. He plays the right sort of style for that. Fascinating to see where we go from here. But like you say, what happens if Setien wins the Champions League with Barcelona? It's a mad situation to be in. But as always, we will keep posted on any developments on this. Andrew, I'm going to just force this onto you. We now have to talk about last night's Champions League game.
You had to do it, man.
About Atalanta. You were getting excited. And then
I got very excited.
Injury time came.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. I went all out with the Nick Cage hair blown in the wing gifts and everything as soon as Atalanta went 1-0 up. But yeah, it wasn't to be. It was they played well. It was a great performance. It was a good game. It was an entertaining game, and it had that, as somebody that was cheering on Atalanta, it had the comedy value at the beginning of Neymar just fluffing so many chances. It was nuts. You've got this player worth 200 million. It came out a couple of days ago that his wages are the equivalent or maybe even more than the entire Atalanta squad. And there he is after probably 8 minutes, and he goes through one-on-one, no defenders around him from about 8 yards and just it was as if his right foot turned to a cinder block, and it just, it was such a weird game. But yeah, the last 10 minutes, Atalanta looked absolutely knackered, out on their feet completely. And I mean, this came at the wrong time when you've got Kylian Mbappe recently introduced to the pitch. Neymar then turned it on. It was. I mean, it's easy to say, but is this the worst Neymar performance ever and the best Neymar performance ever, all in the same breath? Because he went from looking like he'd barely ever seen a football to then just turning the game on its head completely. I mean, he got the assist for Marquinhos' equaliser in the 90th minute. Oh. And then Choupo-Moting in 96, 94, 95. Yeah. But Neymar, he's got this record now of he had 16 successful dribbles, which is the most in the Champions League this season. That record previously was Lorenzo Insigne at Napoli and a certain Leo Messi on 11. So Neymar's blown out the water after a horrendous start, blew out the water, 16 successful dribbles, which is the most since 2008, which was also 16 and was Leo Messi against Man United. So it's. You look at it, it's like, did he have a great game? Did he have an awful game? Did he have both somehow? But Paris Saint-Germain are through, and Neymar had a really, really big part to play in that.
Yes, a Stoke reject sending him through to the semi-finals. Amazing to see something like that. Heartbreaking, as you said, though, for Atalanta. Not helped by Steve McManaman getting so excited on commentary. I was like, oh, come on. Feel a bit sorry for the plucky little Italian side.
The thing with McManaman as well, I mean, he's not my favourite commentator at the best of times, but he was slating Paris Saint-Germain throughout the second half. Like, this is what they do. They choke. This is what they do. They come to the big games and they bottle it, and then he goes and loses his mind when they go and score two in stoppage time.
It was just, you're right, it was the best and worst of Neymar. Yeah. Like you say, the work that he did to settle both goals was classic Neymar almost. But then the chance that he missed, he was clean through. Like you say, there was that back pass that went awry. It was arguably a worse miss than the first one. Like the first one, you can see at least see what he's trying to do, but the second shot, you've seen the highlights, it just flies into the stands, and you think, well, he's never going to score. And he didn't, obviously, but he was ridiculously good towards the end. And honestly, it was just devastating to check the result and find out. And the last few minutes. But like you say, had it gone to extra time, it probably would have only gone 1-1 anyway. Dead on their feet, disappointing. And we could get PSG versus Atletico Madrid in the semi.
Yeah, I'd fancy Atletico Madrid in that. That is, of course, if they manage to get through their tie, which we'll see. It's all ifs and buts. But Paris Saint-Germain, I mean, they'll fancy themselves against anybody because what we've just said there, Neymar can turn a game in a moment's notice after looking like he's never seen a football earlier than that. So it's one of those where I mean, Paris Saint-Germain, they'll back themselves to go all the way. They've got Angel Di Maria to come back. They may have Marco Verratti fit because Di Maria was suspended. Verratti's out with a knock, so Verratti might be back by the time the semis roll around. So there's a lot there for Paris Saint-Germain to fancy themselves, but I can't get involved in the Paris Saint-Germain love story. No. It's this manufactured club that's just like 50 years old. I mean, there was the mid-90s when it was like David Ginola, Patrice Loco, and there was that kind of, because we didn't really know much about it because we didn't have that much access to European football, so you'd catch old VHS tapes for old people like me and be like, oh, these look good and I like their kit, and it's in Paris, and they've got their own club now. And then you realise that somebody just went, I'm going to make the club in Paris, and then obviously they had the big takeover a few years ago and took things to a different level. So it's nice to see them play good football. I still can't get behind them, really. It's a little bit like Red Bull Leipzig.
Yes, exactly. Gutted for Atalanta there. And we'll talk a little bit more about tonight's Champions League games on another video, hopefully later on today. But let's talk a little bit about Real Madrid. Luka Modric allegedly willing to take a pay cut to stay at Real Madrid. This is according to AS.com. His contract ends June next year. He's 34 years of age, but allegedly he is willing to take a pay cut to stay at Real Madrid. Luka Modric has been a sensational footballer, and I'd still say relatively integral to that side.
Yeah, he's one of those players where he dictates the game. He can dictate the pace of it. He might not be the most mobile of players these days. You could argue that maybe he never really was. I mean, he'd get box to box, but it wasn't like he was this workhorse that was all over the pitch. But he's very integral to that team. He's very integral to how they play. There's him and Toni Kroos that act as kind of they dictate the play. They dictate the tempo, and then you have someone in there like a Casemiro that also obviously puts their foot in and helps out. And it's been great for Real Madrid, even when they've not necessarily been winning La Ligas over recent years. Obviously this season they did, but in the Champions League it's been an integral three there in the middle of the park. And I mean, who doesn't like Luka Modric? It's like he's one of those footballers where apart from maybe Spurs fans these days, but yeah, he's one of those footballers where you look at him and it's just like, yeah, he's enjoying himself. Bless him. Look at him. He's running around, his hair everywhere, and he's a little dynamo. He's fun to watch. He's enjoyable to watch, and you know that he's having fun. So I'd like to see him stay at Real Madrid. But then part of me thinking, I don't know, what would be the options for I don't know, when his contract comes up, a 35-year-old Luka Modric? I guess that's the question there.
Yeah, he was linked with Inter a few years ago, I do believe. I think Italy might be the best place for him. I think he could have a real, I was going to say career resurgence. He's not really tailed off whatsoever, but he could do some great things, I have no doubt, for many of the Italian side. So that may be a way forward for him. But yeah, I like him, and I still think he can do a job for Real Madrid.
Yeah, too right. And we're talking about a player that only 2 years ago won the Ballon d'Or. It's not like, I mean, people tend to have short memories and think that, oh God, he's past it now. That's it, get him gone. It's like 2 years ago he was. I mean, he's still that player. I mean, maybe not quite that player, but he's still very much capable of doing a job at one of the top clubs in the world. Whether that's with Real Madrid, whether that is in Italy, whether any of the top leagues. I think he'd be a great addition for somebody, or he'd be a great keep for Real Madrid.
Let's wrap up today then by talking about a guy who we consistently talk about here, despite him not really doing anything, Mesut Ozil.
Yeah, speaking of pay cuts, Mesut Ozil it was a weird story to kind of wake up to today, of like you having a look through the usual sources and the usual gossip columns and the usual outlets, and there's a story about Mesut Ozil explaining why he didn't take a pay cut, and you're thinking, have I missed something? Have there been pay cuts this week with Arsenal? And then you think, like, hold on, this was back in April the 21st. I wrote it down here to remind me. Of course, this was when the thing had just started getting going, and the world was wondering what to do. So we're talking in April. The Arsenal squad was asked to. Arsenal were the first Premier League club to suggest a pay cut for its squad. 12.5%. It was asking their players to take a pay cut, with the belief from the players that this would be to help support the admin staff, the day-to-day staff of the football club. And while the majority of players they accepted this offer, Mesut Ozil it was made very public that he'd refused. And this is a Mesut Ozil who is on £350,000 a week. It's to basically be a former footballer. It seems like these days. But I mean, God bless him. He's got that big contract. It's a little bit similar to the Gareth Bale situation, I guess. Apart from Gareth Bale's just milking it and enjoying poking fun at the whole situation, whereas Mesut Ozil just, I don't know, doesn't really do much, does he? Bless him. He just kind of skulks around, and then he might get a game now and again, and then you realise there's the reason why he's not playing for Arsenal regularly. But yeah, 350 grand a week. He's still got one more year left of that, but he's come out and he's explained that he would have took a pay cut. It's just it wasn't explained to him in the best possible way. He said there was a lack of communication about it all, and that he needed more information. But if he got this information and this communication in April, he would have happily taken that 12.5% pay cut. But seemingly he didn't, and he definitely did not take a pay cut. So here we are with Mesut Ozil on 350 grand a week still for one more year, and Arsenal have just laid off 55 employees they made redundant.
This really winds me up, this does, because what a load of bollocks. Even if that is the case, right? Okay, someone didn't explain it the right way, whatever excuse he wants to be using. I talked to Simon Miller, Arsenal fan, of course, about this. He was really upset about hearing those redundancies at Arsenal. If that is the case, if you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I just didn't realise, you're telling me he doesn't have a couple of million knocking about. He can just go, you know what, to correct things, here it is. Make sure you keep the staff, make sure you pay the staff, make sure the club keeps on running as it is. You're Arsenal Football Club. This isn't, mine or your sides, Andrew, are, scrabbling around, checking behind the back of the sofa to see if they can keep running as a football club next week. their players are on exorbitant amounts of money. You hear complaints from every Tom, Dick, and Harry about the mad wages that footballers get, but that is the state of the game nowadays, unfortunately. But at least try and get the public on side by making some sort of gesture. Just turning around and going, "Oh, sorry, lost in translation. Anyway, all right, see you in a few weeks. I'll be here to collect my check." Oh, it's so frustrating.
I mean, he wouldn't do it, and I think sadly a large portion of footballers probably wouldn't do it either. But you think there's an option there where he could essentially backdate it to April of like, right, hey, I'm gonna have a 12.5% cut retrospectively from April. Work out what that is. Here you go. Here's my contribution to getting Doris the tea lady back in the Emirates or whatever. It's modern football. It's unfortunately that is what it is. And I mean, who are we to say to Mesut Ozil that give up some of your 350 grand, mate? Because
it's awful. Like everyone's going through a really tough time with the ongoing global bastard, as we have to call it. Otherwise, this video will get demonetized. I can't disclose how much I get paid to work here on WhatCulture Football, but I will hold my hands up and say I am willing to take a pay cut. I am willing to accept just £250,000 a week to carry on working here. If that means that we can keep running this channel. Let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's football news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Football wherever you get your podcasts from for daily football podcasts. Plus, let us know your thoughts on Twitter as well at WhatCultureFC, where you can follow both myself and Andrew Pollard. Andrew, where can people get you?
At Culture the Left Peg.
You can find me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCultureFC, as I said, and we'll be back later on today with loads more football news and, of course, a preview of tonight's Champions League game. But for now, my thanks to Andrew Pollard. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.